How did the seeds of socialism first sprout on American soil? A question that takes us back to the tumultuous landscape of the late 19th century. In a time marked by the profound transformation of the Industrial Revolution and the rise of labor movements, the United States was introduced to new ideologies that would forever alter its political landscape. One such ideology was socialism, the belief in collective ownership and democratic control of the means of production. The socialist ideology first gained traction in America with the establishment of the Socialist Labor Party in 1876. This party, founded by immigrants, aimed to bring about a radical change in the capitalist system that they believed was responsible for the exploitation of the working class. Their cause was championed by the likes of Daniel de Leon, an influential figure who championed the idea of industrial unionism as a means to achieve socialist goals. The turn of the century saw the formation of another influential socialist organization, the Socialist Party of America. Established in 1901, this party brought socialism into the mainstream American political discourse. They sought to address the societal inequities wrought by rapid industrialization and unregulated capitalism, advocating for reforms such as child labor laws, minimum wage, and the 8-hour workday. A key figure in this movement was Eugene V. Debs, a charismatic leader who ran for the presidency 5 times under the Socialist Party banner. Debs passionately argued for the rights of workers, gaining support from across the country. His passionate speeches and tireless advocacy brought socialism to the forefront of American politics, laying the foundation for the socialist movements we see today. Thus, at the turn of the 20th century, socialism had begun to take root in America. The seeds sown by the likes of de Leon and Debs had sprouted, and the Socialist Labor Party and the Socialist Party of America had established themselves as significant players in the political arena. As we continue our journey, we'll delve deeper into the rise and fall of socialism in the early 20th century. Thus, at the turn of the 20th century, socialism had begun to take root in America. What led to the rise and subsequent decline of socialism in the early 20th century? As we cross into the 20th century, we find the United States in the throes of the Progressive Era, a period characterized by sweeping social and political reforms. Amidst this backdrop, the seeds of socialism found fertile ground. As the Industrial Revolution widened the economic divide, the working class began rallying behind socialist ideals, seeking economic equality and workers' rights. The Socialist Party of America, formed in 1901, quickly gained traction, even managing to elect 2 members to Congress by 1910. However, the rise was not to last. The onset of World War I and the subsequent Red Scare, a wave of widespread fear of a potential rise of communism, triggered a swift backlash against socialist ideals. The federal government, fueled by a public fear of radicalism, took aggressive steps to quell the socialist movement. One of the most significant of these steps were the Palmer Raids of 1919 to 1920. Named after then Attorney General A. Mitchell Palmer, these raids targeted suspected radical leftists and anarchists, leading to thousands of arrests and deportations. This crackdown, combined with the disillusionment of the working class, who had hoped for a more immediate change in their condition, led to a rapid decline in the popularity of socialism. The final nail in the coffin came with the Smith Act of 1940. This act made it illegal to advocate the overthrow of the U.S. government, a provision that was widely used to prosecute socialists and communists. The act's broad language and its use in high-profile trials further stigmatized socialism, pushing it to the fringes of American political discourse. As World War II raged on, the United States found itself in a battle of ideologies as much as a military conflict. With the focus on defeating the Axis powers, socialism was sidelined, seen as a threat to national unity and security. By mid-century, socialism had receded into the background of American politics. The story, however, does not end there. As we'll see in our next segment, socialism would once again find its voice, albeit in a different form, in the latter half of the 20th century. How did the Cold War impact the perception of socialism in the United States? This is a question that takes us into a time of intense paranoia, fear, and division. As the Cold War set in post-World War II, the United States found itself locked in an ideological battle with the Soviet Union. This was not just a conflict of military might, it was a clash of economic systems, capitalism versus communism. And in the middle of this struggle, socialism, a system often confused with communism, was caught in the crossfire. During this period, socialism was demonized, painted as a threat to the American way of life. This was a time when the term socialist was used as a label of scorn and derision. It was a time when being associated with socialist ideas could cost you your job, your reputation, even your freedom. The McCarthy era, named after Senator Joseph McCarthy, was a particularly intense phase of this fear of communism and, by association, socialism. McCarthy led a zealous campaign against alleged communists in the U.S. government and other institutions. This campaign, often based on questionable evidence and fear-mongering, created an atmosphere of suspicion and mistrust. The fear of communism, and by extension socialism, was so pervasive that it seeped into every corner of American society. It shaped policies, dictated political alliances, and even influenced popular culture. The Red Scare, as it was known, made socialism a taboo subject. It became synonymous with un-American activities, with disloyalty, with treachery. But it wasn't just about fear. The Cold War was also a battle for hearts and minds. The United States, as the champion of capitalism, presented itself as the land of freedom and opportunity, in direct contrast to the perceived oppression and stagnation of the Soviet Union. This narrative further pushed socialism to the fringes, linking it with tyranny and economic failure. The Cold War era solidified the American aversion to socialism. It cast a long shadow, one that still influences perceptions of socialism in the United States today. But as we move further away from the Cold War, the question remains: how will these perceptions evolve in the future? Stay tuned as we delve into socialism in the 21st century in our next segment. Is socialism making a comeback in 21st century America? A question that's been echoing through the corridors of power and on the streets of the United States in recent years. The 21st century has seen a notable resurgence of interest in socialism, particularly among the younger generation. This resurgence has been fueled in part by the economic uncertainty and social inequality that have been hallmarks of the early decades of this century. The financial crisis of 2008, the widening wealth gap, the escalating cost of healthcare and education, these issues have led many to question the tenets of capitalism and look for alternatives. Enter figures like Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. These political leaders, with their bold rhetoric and progressive policies, have brought socialism back into the mainstream conversation. They've ignited a spark in a new generation of Americans, many of whom are disillusioned with the status quo and eager for change. Sanders, a self-described democratic socialist, has been a prominent figure in American politics for decades. But it was his two presidential campaigns, in 2016 and 2020, that really put socialism on the map. His calls for Medicare for all, a $15 minimum wage, and free college education resonated with millions of Americans. On the other hand, Ocasio-Cortez, a relative newcomer to the political scene, has used her platform to advocate for the Green New Deal, a policy proposal that seeks to address climate change and economic inequality through a massive overhaul of the U.S. economy. Her unabashed embrace of socialist ideals has made her a polarizing figure, but also a powerful voice for change. Their impact is undeniable. According to a study by the Victims of Communism Memorial Foundation, as of 2019, 70% of millennials said they were likely or extremely likely to vote for a socialist candidate. In the present day, socialism has re-emerged as a significant force in American politics. It's a trend that's challenging long-held beliefs and shaping the future of the country. Whether this resurgence will lead to a shift in the American political landscape remains to be seen. But one thing is certain: the conversation around socialism in America is far from over. So, what does the future hold for socialism in America? As we turn our gaze towards the horizon, the future of socialism in America is a topic of intense debate among scholars, politicians, and the general public. The perspectives on this issue, as varied as the American landscape itself, reflect the complex relationship between the United States and the concept of socialism. There are those who view socialism as an unattainable utopia, arguing that the American ethos of individualism and entrepreneurship runs counter to the collective principles of socialism. They argue that attempts to implement socialist policies could stifle economic growth and infringe upon individual liberties. On the other side of the debate, advocates for socialism point to growing wealth inequality and the need for robust social safety nets. They believe that a more socialist approach could address these issues, offering solutions to problems such as healthcare, education, and housing. For these proponents, socialism isn't a departure from American values, but rather a necessary evolution to ensure the welfare of all citizens. Meanwhile, scholars offer a more nuanced perspective. They suggest that the future of socialism in America isn't a binary choice between capitalism and socialism. Instead, they propose a blended system, incorporating elements of both ideologies. They point to Nordic countries as examples, where free market capitalism coexists with strong social welfare programs. Politicians are also divided. While some are openly advocating for socialist policies, others are staunchly opposed. This political divide reflects the broader public opinion, as polls show a significant generational gap with younger Americans more favorable towards socialism than their older counterparts. Amidst these debates, it's clear that socialism continues to be a compelling force in American politics. Its future, however, remains uncertain. Will it gain more traction in the coming years? Or will it remain a contentious ideology, garnering support and opposition in equal measure? The future of socialism in America, it seems, is a story yet to be written,